they were instrumental for me really moving forward with working with beavers. Back in 1999, you sponsored a beaver conference in New York, and at that conference, I got to meet for the first time Skip Lyle and Michelle LeClaire from Ontario, and both those kind gentlemen mentored me, and it had a huge impact. So your conference was always be near and dear to my heart. Plus, as I recall, I turned 40 at that conference. So here we are 20 years later, and they both, Sharon and Owen, have worked so hard for so long with Beavers, Wetlands and Wildlife, done so much public education, outreach. Anyone who comes to them, they're more than willing to share their knowledge and really push the envelope of moving beavers, living with beavers forward. And we're all indebted to that. And for that, please come up and let me present this award. This plaque was made by a local artist, beautiful. It reads the BeaverCon 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award, presented to Owen and Sharon Brown in recognition of your dedication to beaver management and coexistence. Thank you both.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure if we deserve it, but we'll take it. And it's wonderful to see so many beaver people here. Haven't Mike and Scott done a great job? Yes. So I want to say we're accepting this on behalf of some mentors who were largely unsung, but devoted their lives to beavers. Dorothy Richards, called the Beaver Woman in New York State. And for 50 years, she studied beavers. And then she got a license to have them in her house. Her husband engineered an addition to their house called the Y, with a concrete swimming pool. And she had huge numbers of people, probably up to almost 100,000 over 50 years, that she took to the pond and then allowed groups like school classes into the house to see the beavers. And we assisted with this. We volunteered early on and really got to know beavers as individuals, as sensitive, reasoning individuals with a sense of humor. They just loved to grab one of her oriental rugs and drag it out to the Y. That they like practical type jokes, we learned. Or one would climb up on a rattan chair that she has, very rickety, and climb up on the arm of the chair and sit there until one of us ran forward to grab it before it fell over. And then the beaver would shake, which is beaver form of humor. But it's been really interesting consulting, and early on we heard about beaver myopia, or nearsightedness, not by beavers really, but by humans, which is similar to what Francis mentioned of beaver amnesia. You know, beavers tend to be ignored quite often. So we worked a lot on that, and we created some videos, raised for beaver kits, then created a coexisting video, which we want to show you a bit of. And we are trying to go by the 3 B's, to be brief, bright, and be gone. So it won't take too much time, hopefully. But Owen has a little thing he wants to say and show a bit of a video.
Thanks, hon. 80% of this award is right here. Right here. It's unbelievable. I'm the president of Beavers, Wetlands and Wildlife because I have a PhD. It's in material science, engineering. So when I was working as a professor, Sharon was working for Beavers, and it started 46 years ago. We were going to graduate school because we didn't like the professions that we were in. We wanted to get, further or whatever. I didn't like working 8 to 5. I thought professorship sounds a lot better, 2 hours a day. But anyway, in the late 60s, early 70s, we were in graduate school, and we belonged to Defenders of Wildlife, and they haven't had a magazine. I don't know lately whether they still do, but we read in the back that there was a director of Defenders of Wildlife, and she had beavers in her house. We said, holy mackerel, beavers in her house? And we knew a little bit about beavers, but not a heck of a lot. So we moved to the Mohawk Valley in New York. It's sort of a historical place where General Herkimer lived, etc. And we both became professors at local small colleges, 2-year colleges, which is nice because then you get promoted for your teaching ability and not for how many papers you can publish. I'm sure Grace appreciates that. By the way, Grace is 10 years older than we are, so I hope I do as well 10 years from now. We're in our 79th year. So anyway, we moved to that area, and a friend of ours called up and said, well, that beaver woman lives near you. And sure enough, Sharon was home and read the local papers, and there was going to be a talk by the beaver woman. So we went to the talk, and what she did was she gave a slideshow or whatever it was. It was back in the day before video and all that stuff that was accessible. So she'd give the talk, and then she'd say, are there any questions? And of course there'd be a lot of questions. And so we told her about our experience, how we discovered her and stuff like that. And she said, would you like to see my beavers? And I said, yeah. And so she jumped in her Jeep and said, follow me. So we went over to her house, and it was unbelievable. There were 12 beavers in the house. The mother and the father, the 5 yearlings, and 5 kits. So they must have liked living in their house. They, they had their family, and they built a lodge at it was like a sunroom, and her husband built a pool that they called the Y for YMCA or whatever, YBCA. Anyway, and these beavers would come in the door into the living room, soaking wet, of course. And she had cherry boards, floorboards, and it was just spectacular. She had Persian rugs, and they would grab the Persian rugs and try to get out the door, into the pond, because that would make nice material, bedding maybe. It was super. But one instance that just killed me. This beaver, we're sitting in front of the wood stove. Okay, say the wood stove's here, and we're sitting facing the wood stove. There's a chair, a table, and she's over here. Dorothy Richards is over here, sitting in her rocker. And she said, would you like to feed the beavers raisins? And I said, raisins? She says, yeah, there's a little dish of them right next to you. Well, this beaver, Eager, was the male. So you're supposed to have heard the word raisins, because they like raisins. And he's sitting in front of me on his haunches, like this, okay? Straight up and down. And I took the raisins and I thought, God, I shouldn't be using my right hand because I'm right-handed. I should have put them in my left hand, but I didn't. Not that smart. So I held it out, and it was too low. So the beaver takes my hand and lifts it to its mouth and got all the raisins out of my hand. And these crevices had raisins in them. And he took them out with his lips. With his lips, not his teeth. It was phenomenal. I said, that's it. This is the greatest animal on earth. Besides Sharon, of course. I thought if Francis can tell 37 million years of the history of beavers in 45 minutes, I figured I could tell you our history in, what do we have, 25 minutes? Well, not anymore. But anyway, what we do is we're an educational group, mainly. And we've made videos and sent them out. It's called Coexisting with Beavers. And we give the natural history of beavers. And then we give a little section on Dorothy Richards. And then we have another section, the third section, is how to build a beaver deceiver. I love the idea of Skip going to squares or whatever, not round cages. But, so that's what we do. And we've been doing it for a long time. Dorothy Richards died in 1985. And that was the beginning of Beavers, Wetlands and Wildlife. She had a 1,200-acre beaver sanctuary. And we go and help her and do all sorts of things. We got so involved that we sold our home in Poland, which was about 45 miles away, and bought land near ours, near her. She had 1,200 acres. We only had 200 acres in a nice old farmhouse, an 1860 farmhouse. And then it turns out it was unbelievable. We went over the hill, the place that we took Mike and Skip in 1999. They came to visit us. But we went over the hill before it was a beaver pond. And there was a little 1 meter, I'll say that for the Canadians, we're the only country in the world that's on this stupid foot system. But my foot is actually a foot. So I'm happy. Anyway, back to what I was saying. We took them over the hill. We went over this hill when we're looking at the property, and it's all vacant, and there's a meter stream flowing through. And that's it. That sold us on the place. So we bought it anyway. We had 200 acres. Eventually we bought the 100 acres across the street. It was a dirt road. So now we own 300 acres. And it's a beaver sanctuary. To the south, we have a 60-acre pond. When Skip and Mike were there, it was a 15-acre pond. We have a little place, glass windows around, and over the pond. What?
Look out.
What?
Look out.
Thank you. Yeah, it's called the lookout. And there was only 15-acre pond, which is sort of average in New York State. Well, our beavers decided it was just a little stream, 1 meter, 3 foot wide. You could jump over it. Turned into a beautiful 15-acre wetland. And then a few years ago, the male beaver said, I want something bigger. So he went downstream, and there's in Colorado it'd be called a river, but it was a pretty beautiful stream. 3 streams in our property in the 300 acres. And he built a 300-foot dam. Now we have a 60-acre lake on our property, which we canoe in. It's phenomenal. Anyway, that's enough of me talking. I would like to show you that video. When someone asks us to give a program, we take our coexisting tape. Now it comes in a thumb drive. What amazing time to live. Anyway, let's try showing that. It's going to be the natural history of beavers. You haven't seen a beaver in all this program. I'm not degrading the program, and you've seen beavers on the slide and stuff like this, but not the way you'll see them with Sharon. So,
Owen,
can we,
the first video, right?
huh?